Dear friends, I wanted to make this video to express my feelings toward certain issue that I felt for a long time, but it burgeoned and came to the forefront in my mind for the past 10 years. And it goes like this. We had some terrible times in Syria and elsewhere. You know, I relate to Syria because that's where I come from. That's where my childhood was before I immigrated to the West, to America in 1981. Or prior to that, had a tenor or a small short stint in Europe, France and Spain, and then I came to the United States. But in our mind, in our unconscious, we always come across certain feelings that that we read about, that ensue or arise in our minds and psyche and unconscious, based on knowing about certain history. In Syria, it's almost full destruction, and other nations didn't fare better, like in our vicinity. It happened before. There are monsters out there, but this is to open for the subject I'm going to talk about. A lot of refugees, so many refugees from Syria and say Afghanistan and Iraq and here and there, made their way to Germany. Are they all legitimate? I don't think so. Are most of them legitimate refugees? I do not know. Are few of them legitimate refugees, or all of them illegitimate refugees, or not legitimate or legitimate? I cannot tell, but not all of them are. I have witnessed certain acts by certain refugees that meant to make German people hate refugees. And these people who perpetrated these acts were actually dispatched by the Syrian regime and Iran's regime, and Russia for that matter, you know, the Putins. And I say Putins in plural term, which includes the establishment in Russia, the rulers of Russia, not necessarily one person or two persons. However, when people look at Germany, when I looked at Germany when I was young, whether it was movies or reading about, or after I came to the West, you know, looking at them, they're very prosperous, they're very industrious. Even here in the United States, they pride the products that are made in Germany. When we hear commercials or advertising those products, they commend the German engineering. But what people don't know is that this Germany that we look at has been through a lot in the past century, in the last century. Very few people know that what happened in Syria happened in Germany, probably more lethal and more tragic in Germany than it happened in Syria. Both are tragic. The death of civilians, innocent civilians, is not measured by the number of those who were number of the victims, rather by the atrocities and the viciousness of it. And the murderous nature of the attackers. Very few people know that Germany has been put through some horrific and tragic events in the last century. And Germany that we know of in World War I, before World War I, or study history of, is no longer around. Now, the reason I'm making this video is very simple. I watched a movie. I borrow movies here. I go to the libraries and watch movies sometimes, you know, thinking that if you borrow a movie from the library, you're going to get you know, an educational movie, or, you know, to kill time, let's so to speak. And that movie basically evoked very poignant feelings and very sad feelings in my heart about what's happened to those people in Germany. And what is still going on in Germany. Germany, although firestorm stopped at the end of World War II, and the details of that are so gory and saddening and tragic that one cannot but become nauseous reading about them and hearing about them. So the Germany that you see as prosperous and industrious and happy Germany on the facade of it, at least, is not the Germany that was there before World War II. In World War II, the German government or rulers were decapitated, and then Germany was put through a very a metamorphosis, if you will, or a transition into a different type of government that is external, that is alien to the country, and that has no mercy toward the country, basic and simple. And in World War II, the second step took place, and a lot of destruction happened. A lot of things happened in the name of Germany, which Germans are not happy about. Nor will they do that under normal circumstances, but there are some elements that are sickly elements who, in fact, committed some atrocities, whether in Russia or elsewhere. And Germans, a typical German citizen now bears the consequences of these acts, and which were committed and perpetrated by some alien beings in Germany, and intentionally gave reason, not by way of accident or unintentional, for the slaughter that happened in Germany, the rape of Germany in World War II. The firestorm, if one sees the firestorm and its effect on the civilians, it's horrific. It's simply horrific. And although some of the details are still kept to show people, and I heard people here in the United States of dubious intentions and dubious view of the world, gloat about, look what we did to Germany, and to me it sounded like you never gloat about these things, even if they were legitimate, even if the circumstances for what happened last century is legitimate. One never gloats about the horror and about the misery of people. Misery, to say so to speak, to be in a camp or even sleep on the street cannot even be compared to what happened in Germany in World War II. Something similar happened in Syria now, on probably the same scale, but in Germany, the loss of a human life and the suffering exceeds that of Syria. The Syrian population, which are the majority. I need not go into details of what happened there. History knows that, we know that, and it's painful to ponder and think about. But then about a month ago, I watched a movie in German because I had aspirations to learn German, not because of them being better than anyone else in mind and soul, in mind and soul and creation and body. No. But because I admire their ability to achieve, their incessant and their insistence on achieving and rebuilding and so on. But lo and behold, what people don't see is what happened in the last century, and what happened to them after World War II, after the firestorm stopped. Is total transformation, and that transformation is still taking place, and their superficial independence is threatened as of now, and will be threatened for a long time to come. Those people who perpetrated the atrocities of World War I and World War II in Europe are still there and as powerful as they could become. And more so, now they have the mandate, the illegitimate and mandate of dictating, damages, like causing damages without being accounted for on their crimes and viciousness and so on. Nonetheless, the movie I watched is called Tony Erdmann. I borrowed this from the library, and there are some scenes in it that are not acceptable, for a family. However, and that's the first thing you notice, is that in the library they put some movies in there and some films that are counterproductive and a little bit disrupting to the morals of the family and so on. And you wonder why they do that. And then you realize at the end of the day that everything is filtered. Everything in the library is subject to geared toward certain psychological set. It's meant to really disrupt what history did with people's own level of family or person or ethics or whatever you think of. It is so selected and produced that it really, if you allow your family to watch those movies from the library, you will be bringing poison into your family. First, I thought it was a couple of mistakes here and there, like in the movie section. But then I realized the entire shelf of the movies is as such selected to be as such as poisonous entertainment, as psychological spins, deep, horrific psychological spins that destroys humankind, but sometimes destroys the human psyche and removes it from anything that is called ethics or chastity or all these virtues of mankind that causes mankind to survive and raises mankind to a higher level. But then I realized that the whole thing in there is as such. Now, in some movies, it's a history really undeclared, gloating about certain history. So if you want to know history, sometimes you will find it like they say in that song, words of a prophet are on a subway wall, but it is true. Like they say, sometimes people talk about their own feelings, about their own approach to things, about how they view the world and so on, sometimes without saying words, or sometimes by slips of tongues, or sometimes as evil as it gets, intentionally by talking about it indirectly, by declaring your position and your attitude indirectly. And that's what's going on in this world now, is people who are predators, who accuse you of being bad, they declare their intentions toward you out in the open, but indirectly. Thus, therefore, you cannot name the perpetrator or point him out as the perpetrator of things. The movie is called Tony Erdmann, which I borrowed, and it's got some scenes, like I said, not suitable for children. But while I was watching that movie, I began to get disturbed. My psyche began to get disturbed, understanding the contents of it and certain scenes and stretches of the movie. First of all, I got confused a little bit about it. And this is not the critique of the movie, rather what the movie is talking about, and the makers of the movie tells you precisely what happened to Germany and what's happening to Germany now after World War II, of course. Therefore, I got disturbed a little bit. I began to see different notions in the movie, different approaches in the movies, different descriptions in the movie, and it was a little bit disturbing. But I really didn't connect the dot until later. But when I connected the dots later in the movie, it shows a side that I can only imagine in few words is when I watch a certain predator with vehemence on torturing and killing its victim. Not that its victim is attacked it, or not that its victim is done anything to it, but the predator is attacking the prey because it wants to eat the prey. It's gonna devour the prey. It's gonna annihilate the prey, and it's gonna leave nothing out of the prey except what it couldn't digest by itself, such as probably bones or anything else. And the process of predation is very painful sometimes, very very painful, although it's a short stint, but it's very painful. And you would wish, when you watch such scenes or episodes in the animal kingdom, that the prey perishes or expires quickly. Why? Because the suffering begins to take on to your psyche, as like that's nature and so on. But some of it is really painful, and it shows the predation process in its worst. Of course, animals, that's how they are. They need to eat, they need to live, and they need to feed their young and so on. But the prey is what we call the little guy, is the part of the scene or the part of history that we feel sorry for. Now, I'm not saying Germany is weak or is prey that is different from the attackers, the predator. No, I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is when the human attacks a human, and there are people who are capable of becoming predators in society and on world humanity-wide level, they do the same thing as in the animal kingdom, predator eating prey, or killing prey, or torturing prey, or however, in the case of Germany, it has been too long. The suffering has been going on for too long. Some of it after World War II, you could see the Germans are, trying to they're being numb. They're trying to look as if everything's normal and so on, but their life is slowly but surely being transformed as if they're being digested by this predator, which I want to call passively communism here. The communism of the last century, the horror of communism of the last century. So the hot wars that happened back there are horrific, but then what happened afterwards is the subject of that movie, I believe. So, and then eventually in my mind and soul, I connected the dots in that movie, and I can clearly see the predator gloating about what they're doing to Germany. Like Germany, being hopelessly in the grasp of the predator, who was supposed to be the father, Tony Erdmann, and his daughter, right? The daughter. And then at one point in the movie, she is asked by her own father, who is an actor from Austria, if she's still a human being. And then one time her boss asks her if like he likes animal. So all in all, when you connect the dots and draw the picture out of that movie, you'd see the predator gloating about the prey. And the picture is horrific. How they're slowly but surely dealing with the Germans from the predator's point of view, and in the agony. And eventually, at the end of the movie, the people succumb. The actress succumb to, and then assumes the personality of her father, the deranged and twisted personality of her father, because she has no choice anymore. She has to accommodate otherwise the hostilities and the tension between her and that father, quote unquote, who is really come from Austria. She is unable to alleviate it or get rid of it or stay away from it. But that means a lot more. It means the not just the father and the daughter tension and hostilities and intervention and so on and so forth. The overwhelming father in her life and so on. It means the actress is Germany and the German people, and the father is this alien that came into the country, and how it is transforming the country with pain. They don't go into gory details, but they show you how. In fact, there are some points in the movie where it shows certain, relationships, and they denigrate and they disparage the Germans, through the actress herself, her behavior in certain, interaction with certain man and so on and so forth. It's appalling. I was appalled, and then the more after the movie, I watched the movie and I returned it back to the library. I was so appalled and I felt so bad for those people, because very few people in the world know that after World War II ended, that the suffering of the German people and the forceful transformation and painful and tragic transformation of the German people is still taking place. That very slow process, and as if somebody, it's precisely the struggle and battle between predator and prey. If the prey continues to live like in the struggle and lengthen the struggle for days, the predator will not go away. Why? Because the predator is attacking the prey because it wants to devour and take the prey and ingest its food, its meat, and its fluid and its nourishment, and feed from it, and perhaps take it to to rear its young. So that was the movie, the subject of the movie. Very few people think, if you're shallow enough watching the movie, and one is shallow enough and initialized in the brain, can probably see a benign, just a subject to make fun of or enjoy watching, that this idiot father, who has nowhere else to go, he just hangs around his daughter and wants to be part of her life, and assist her, and he thinks was a little girl and still the little girl and so on. They little understand that what this means is Germany and this alien predator. The actress herself is Germany, and the actor is in fact the guy the alien who comes into Germany first by force, and then change of the government and so on, and that. Very few people see what Germany is going through. It was sad for me to consider all these facts about what happened in Europe, in Germany in particular. Now, why don't I feel the same way about Russians? Russians, I feel the same way about them. But what happened to Germans didn't happen to Russians. Not in Moscow, not anywhere else. The communism killed so many people in Russia, 60 million of them. But not like Germany. I mean, I'm not belittling what happened to the Russians. According to some accounts, that Rabbi Stalin sent some 60 million into the gulags of Siberia. There's no doubt what he did, and his other brother, Lenin. That's in Russia alone, and I read numbers of horrific nature of treatment of people in the stands, Central Asian republics and those Islamic republics or Muslim republics of what's called the Soviet Union. So many millions were killed and murdered and sent into the gulags as well. Communism is a curse, people. So after a while, I kept, I couldn't abandon or evict those feelings, those agonizing feelings that rose up in my psyche after I watched the movie and I considered the history I know about Germany and the world and so on, to a degree that at one point I in my heart I really wept, W-E-P-T, wept, in my heart cried for Germans, what they're going through. And if I was, I was one of them, I would probably consider not even having children anymore, because there's seems to be no hope of getting out of that mold of steel, of iron curtain. Some people imagine that when the Soviets collapsed or were destroyed in Afghanistan, for that matter, and East Germany was reunited with uh, uh, with with the rest of Germany, West Germany. That communism was all but gone. That's not the case. There is communism continued in a different fashion, in a different look, in a different phase, in a different closing. Germany, communism is still here. They're the Putins, and their typical work is once more demonstrated in Syria and in the Caucasus. And for those of you who don't recall what happened in the Caucasus in Chechnya, Putin, to make a point of him dominating Chechnya, he shelled the city of Grozny, which is the capital of Chechnya, for about a week, killing no less than 250,000 people, innocent people. And that's them. That's communism. That's the Putins. Putin is a straightforward inheritor of Lenin and Stalin by way of religion, of relationship, of blood relationship, of communism. Communism didn't go away. Communism is still around, and it's recovering from that change, from that transformation that happened afterwards. Now, some people in modern day, and in light of the situation in Ukraine and so on, they're sitting back and kicking back and relaxing. What they don't know is that old snake of, like three-headed snakes, right? Lenin, Stalin, and now Putin, and whatever is in between them. I would say it's like the 50 or 60 or whatever leaders of what called communism in the Soviet Union back then in Russia. The 60-headed snake that is still alive and kicking, and was helped by the West to recover. To my surprise, some people here think in the United States or in the West that the Cold War is over. The Cold War is not over. Ask any Russian, ask any Soviet, ask any communist, they will tell you that communism is not over. And what happened in January 6th in the White House and in the government halls of the United States is very obvious what it is. Communism is rolled back and then is on the offensive again. That ideology, that deadly ideology, and deranged feelings that those communists have, and they had for a long time. They never changed. They will never change. Therefore, in Ukraine, people, in Ukraine, those Western European countries, and they have helpers. Those communist, modern day Putins or communists have assistants, have allies, have like what's called the fifth column in Western Europe and in the United States, will help them move over into communism, into Western Europe. And these people, whether in Northwestern Europe or Southern Europe or just like Southwest Europe or Southeast Europe or whatever it is outside of the sphere of Putin, they're sitting back and watching, not knowing that this Hulk, this beast that has this sick ideology for thousands of years, is slowly and surely crawling toward the West, and they will not go back. And those people who are allies and part and parcel of this communism people think is a byproduct or the work of a couple of sickos like Karl Marx or Engels, or later on Stalin and Trotsky and so on. No, that ideology and what embeds in it as and declared, it is the vehicle to bring in the prey. And who is the prey? The other human. Human. I didn't say German or Syrian or whoever it is. It is the human. Their purpose is a human. That psychology, that dogma, that set of norms of abnormal norms and understanding has been around for a long time, and basically it just triggered its ugly head again, and it's always undertow, there's always undercurrent, there's always undertow, and those people are always crawling there. Their Their mind are not flexible. Their hearts are probably, they have no hearts. Their souls are dead and so on. That's the type of Lenin and Stalin and now Putin and whatever is in between. And now I'm talking about the European theater only. Now they're brothers in China and Iran and here and there. All those people, you don't understand their nature. They are molded. Their very genes have been altered to carry such dogma and such a dark view of the world and other humanity, and and they're willing to do anything, anything, anything to achieve their sinister purpose. And the unfortunate thing is that at least in this modern age, well, at least Germany in particular has been subject to that predator's painful attack that is now devouring Germany while alive, and they crow about it and brag about it and bleat about it in a movie like this, Tony Erdmann. Like I said, go watch that movie. I'm certain I didn't misunderstand what it is, but in my heart, when I compared to the gloating of the predator and the situation of the actress who is the daughter, even though it was for her it was an act, I wept deep within. I wept, for what's happening to those people. If they were converted in or changed or totally transformed or remolded in World War II, one would feel bad for that. But the lingering pain and the lingering process and the lengthy process of transformation, and that's a very painful process, still going on. Where is it going? I don't think they know, but I will guess that at one point when the last German, that is really German, right? Such as the actress, basically picked up the teeth, fake teeth, put the hat, and that alien went inside and said, I'll go get the camera, meaningly, let history be witness on what happened to you, Germany. Because now he's going to gloat about it by the camera. I am sorry, I really feel bad, really feel very bad for these people. I truly do, and I wish, the Germany that I know of is not totally, or I know of from history, or I visited Germany before, and it's impressive. It's people, any nation that has been subject to what Germany has been subject to is something awful. But now there is a more serious note here. When will this end in Germany? I don't think it's going to end. How do I know? Because in the Muslim world, after the cometh of the arrival of the Mongols, right, who are relative of Lenin and Stalin, and they did those mass massacres in cities and so on, especially Baghdad in particular. The Muslim world has been struggling ever since, not just because they're reeling from the horror that happened back then, because that Mongol establishment really didn't go away, even though they were defeated in the Spring of Goliath and so on, but they're there. They're there, and they wore masks of Islam, right? Wearing the mask of Islam and so on. And ever since, like if you're a Muslim man, whether in Iran, whether in Syria, whether in Pakistan, whether anywhere else, or in China, you're still subject for 1,000 years now. You're subject to impoverishment, psychological attacks, being accused of being something that they manufacture for you, and so on. If you look at the Muslim nation before the arrival of the Mongols, they were prosperous people, and you admire them, and people immigrated to their lands from all over, whether from Europe or Africa or even in Asia, and similar to people now flocking to the United States or trying to go into Germany, for example. But in my opinion, once that predator sets in, that's it. There's no getting rid of it. Well, there is, but not in a conventional manner. But Germany is being slowly and surely, subjected to, to the horror of that predator that arrived. So similar to Baghdad and the Muslim world being invaded, those Mongols arriving at the Middle East, and they never really left. That moment of the Mongol arriving at Baghdad happened in World War II in Europe, in Germany in particular. I pray that changes, and whenever I hear people talk, like German people talk, especially their young youth, they're no longer the same as I used to read, as I read they used to be before World War One. How they were family oriented, how they were scientific, how they're not perfect. I'm not saying they're perfect, but they were living, they're very good social life, and they have ethics and so on. Suddenly now, the destruction, aside from the destruction and rape of Germany in World War II, or between World War I and World War II, I seen some footage where some real German officers are sitting on the street begging for money. You can never imagine that in Germany. Same thing happened to Japan, by the way. And as you can see, the dynamics of it, tells you something about what's going on in the past century and continues in this century. I wept inside, when I see how they gloat about what they're doing to the German. This is like, that nature of the weasel, how deadly and blood-sucking it is, and so on. And I pray their situation will change, and I really feel bad. But if you watch that movie, know what it is talking about, know what it means, know that alien predator in Germany is gloating about that slow process of preying on Germans and preying on Germany. Have a nice day, my friends.